The war room aboard the galactic dreadnought, Eternal Dominion, echoed with harsh, guttural laughter. Admiral Zektar stood 8 feet tall, his crystalline exoskeleton gleaming under the harsh blue lights. Around the holographic display table, a dozen other alien commanders from various species nodded their approval, their various appendages clicking, chittering, and buzzing in amusement. Humans, General Voxhai wheezed through his breathing apparatus, his tentacles writhing with mirth. These mammals, they still use projectile weapons, primitive chemical propulsion devices that fire metal slugs. The hologram displayed Earth's military formations from their recent skirmishes on the outer colonies. Human soldiers crouched behind cover, aiming long-barreled rifles at targets they could barely see. To the alien commanders, it looked pathetic. "Look, at this," Admiral Zektar pointed a razor-sharp claw at the display. "They lie in dirt. They crawl on their bellies like the primitive creatures they descended from. While we command plasma cannons that can vaporize a building, they, what do they call it? Take aim with these ancient weapons." Commander Thiska, her serpentine head swaying hypnotically, hissed her agreement. "Their snipers are particularly amusing, one being alone, trying to affect the outcome of battles involving thousands. Such arrogance from such a young species." The war room erupted in another wave of derisive sounds that passed for laughter among the dozen different species present. They had good reason to be confident. The Galactic Empire had conquered 47 star systems. Their technology was millennia ahead of Earth's. Their warriors were bred for battle, genetically enhanced and equipped with weapons that humans could barely comprehend. Admiral Zektar tapped his claw against the metal table. "The humans have managed to hold 3 outer colonies through what they call guerrilla tactics, hiding, running, ambushing supply convoys. They avoid direct confrontation because they know they cannot win." "Cowards," rumbled War Chief Gracton, his massive frame causing the deck plating to vibrate. His species, the Cronin, were 8-foot-tall humanoids with rock-like skin and strength that could crush steel. "In glorious battle, warrior faces warrior. These humans shame themselves with their sneaking and hiding." General Voxhai's breathing apparatus wheezed as he spoke. "Intelligence reports suggest they have something they call special forces, elite warriors trained in these primitive tactics. The reports mention one human in particular." The display shifted, showing a grainy image of a figure in camouflaged clothing, barely visible against a rocky outcropping. The image was taken from extreme distance, and the human's face was obscured. "They call this one Ghost," Admiral Zektar said, his mandibles clicking in what passed for a smile among his species. "One human with an ancient projectile weapon. Our intelligence suggests this individual has been responsible for the elimination of several of our forward reconnaissance teams." Commander Tissika's forked tongue flicked out, tasting the air. One human, against the might of the Empire. How deliciously primitive. War Chief Gracton slammed his massive fist onto the table, causing the holographic display to flicker. "Let me face this ghost in single combat. I will crush their bones and feed them to the void." "Patience, old friend," Admiral Zektar said, his voice carrying the authority of countless conquered worlds. "We will deal with these humans soon enough, but first, let us savor their desperation. Intelligence reports suggest they are planning something they call Operation Last Stand on the colony world of New Haven." The display zoomed in on a terrestrial planet with blue oceans and green continents. Cities dotted the surface, connected by transportation networks that looked primitive compared to the Empire's infrastructure. 30,000 human colonists, General Voxhai wheezed. "They refuse to evacuate. They claim they will fight to the last man." Such melodrama from a species that has existed for mere moments in galactic time. Admiral Zektar's exoskeleton shifted colors, displaying his amusement through bioluminescent patterns. "Then we shall accommodate their wish for drama, deploy the first assault fleet, 12 dreadnoughts, 40 destroyers, and 200 landing craft. We will make an example of New Haven that will echo throughout human space." "Admiral," Commander Thisika hissed, "perhaps such overwhelming force is unnecessary against primitives." "Exactly my point," Admiral Zektar replied. Let every human world see the recordings of New Haven's conquest. Let them witness what happens when inferior beings dare to resist the Empire. We will broadcast the battle across all human communication networks. War Chief Gracton's rocky features twisted into something resembling a grin. And this ghost? Will they come to defend their nestmates? Admiral Zektar's mandibles clicked rapidly. Intelligence suggests this ghost has family among the New Haven colonists. A brother, I believe. If the human follows their primitive emotional bonds, they will come. And when they do, we will finally see what their elite warrior can accomplish against true military might. The alien commanders exchanged glances filled with predatory anticipation. To them, humans were nothing more than an amusing diversion, a brief entertainment before adding another conquered species to the Empire's vast collection. Set course for New Haven, Admiral Zektar commanded, and prepare the recording devices. The galaxy will learn what happens to those who resist the Empire. As the war room emptied, Admiral Zektar remained behind, studying the holographic display of the mysterious human called Ghost. The image was frustratingly unclear, but something about the figure's posture suggested patience, the kind of patience that came from hours of lying motionless, waiting for the perfect moment. Primitive, he muttered to himself. But somewhere in the depths of his alien consciousness, a tiny voice whispered a warning that he was too proud to hear. The Eternal Dominion and its escort fleet began their jump to hyperspace, carrying with them the combined military might of a dozen species. They traveled toward New Haven with the absolute confidence of predators who had never encountered a human sniper in their natural element. Behind them, in the cold depths of space, long-range sensors detected their departure. The information was immediately transmitted through quantum-encrypted channels to a small outpost on the edge of human space, where a solitary figure in military fatigues read the intelligence report with calculating eyes. Sergeant Major Elena, Vasquez callsign Ghost, folded the report and reached for her rifle case. Her younger brother Marcus was a doctor on New Haven, tending to colonist families who had chosen to make their stand rather than abandon their homes. The Empire was about to learn that some prey had teeth. Chapter 2, The Perfect Storm 3. Days later, the skies above New Haven burned with the entry trails of the Imperial fleet. 12 massive dreadnoughts descended through the atmosphere like falling stars, their hulls glowing white-hot from atmospheric friction. The sight was meant to inspire terror, and for most of the 30,000 colonists watching from the surface, it succeeded. Dr. Marcus Vasquez stood on the roof of New Haven General Hospital, his medical coat whipping in the wind generated by the massive ship's passage. His hands trembled as he adjusted his glasses, watching the alien vessels take positions around the planet. As the colony's chief medical officer, he had insisted on staying to treat the wounded who would inevitably come. "Doctor, you should come inside," called Nurse Jennifer Park from the stairwell. "The Colonial Defense Force wants all civilians in hardened shelters." Marcus shook his head, his dark eyes never leaving the sky. "Someone needs to coordinate medical." Response: "Besides, my sister would never forgive me if I hid while others fought." He had received Elena's encrypted message 12 hours ago. "Coming home. Keep your head down, little brother. E." The message should have been comforting, but Marcus knew his sister well enough to recognize the tone. Elena wasn't coming to evacuate him. She was coming to fight, and that meant she expected the fight to be worth having. Across the colony, Colonel Sarah Chen stood in the makeshift command bunker beneath City Hall. The Colonial Defense Force had 200 volunteers, farmers, miners, shopkeepers, and teachers who had chosen to pick up rifles rather than abandon their homes. They faced impossible odds, but humans had a peculiar talent for fighting impossible odds. "Alien forces are establishing a perimeter," reported Lieutenant Torres, studying the holographic tactical display. 12 major vessels, approximately 40 smaller craft. They're not even bothering with orbital bombardment. Colonel Chen frowned. Why not? They could glass the surface from orbit and be done with it. Intelligence intercepts suggest they want to make an example. Torres replied grimly. They're planning to broadcast the invasion across human space, a demonstration of Imperial power. Then we give them a demonstration they won't forget, Colonel Chen said. Signal all defensive positions. Hold fire until they're committed to ground assault. Make them come to us. Above the planet, Admiral Zektar stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, his crystalline form reflecting the light of New Haven's sun. The planet hung below like a blue-green jewel, beautiful and defenseless. Admiral, reported Tactical Officer Zendar, human forces are dispersed throughout the urban areas. Approximately 200 armed individuals detected. No heavy weapons or aircraft. As expected, Admiral Zektar clicked. Deploy the first landing force. 20,000 warriors. Overwhelming superiority will demonstrate the futility of resistance. War Chief Gracton's voice boomed over the communication system from his assault transport. My Cronin shock troops are eager for battle, Admiral. We will crush these humans swiftly. Patience, War Chief. Remember, this is a demonstration. Let them see us coming. Let them understand the hopelessness of their situation before we finish them. What the Imperial forces didn't know was that New Haven had been chosen for more than just its symbolic value. The colony sat in a river valley surrounded by rocky hills and dense forests. The urban area was a maze of interconnected buildings, underground tunnels, and natural caves. The terrain was a sniper's paradise, if you knew how to use it. 2 kilometers outside the colony, a figure emerged from a camouflaged hide that had been invisible even from 10 meters away. Elena Vasquez, known to the Imperial intelligence files as Ghost, moved through the forest like smoke. Her rifle, a custom .338 Lapua Magnum built for extreme long-range precision, was slung across her back. Her equipment was minimal: ammunition, water, emergency medical supplies, and a quantum-encrypted communicator. She had been moving through Imperial-controlled space for 6 days, staying ahead of their patrols, gathering intelligence, and preparing for this moment. The Empire's confidence would be their weakness. They expected primitive tactics because they had never faced a human sniper who had spent 15 years perfecting the art of invisible death. Elena's communicator buzzed softly. Colonel Chen's voice was barely audible through the encryption. Ghost, this is New Haven Command. Do you copy? Copy, Command, Elena whispered, her voice barely disturbing the forest air. I'm in position on Ridge 7, overlooking the primary landing zone. What's your assessment? Elena adjusted her spotting scope, studying the massive alien landing craft descending toward the valley floor. Through the scope, she could see individual alien warriors, massive armored figures that would have been intimidating to regular infantry. They're coming in heavy, she reported. Multiple species, mixed units, but they're landing in the open, textbook formation. They expect no resistance. Orders? Elena smiled grimly. During her military career, she had served in conflicts across human space. She had learned to fight separatist rebels, space pirates, and corporate mercenaries. Each enemy had taught her something different. But the most important lesson had come from an old sergeant who had fought in the early colony wars. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. And these alien bastards are about to find out that size doesn't matter when you can't see what's killing you. I'm going hunting, Elena told Colonel Chen. Keep your people in defensive positions until I thin out their command structure. And, Colonel? Yes? Tell my brother I said hi. Elena cut the communication and began moving toward her first firing position. Below in the valley, 20,000 alien warriors were deploying in perfect military formation, their advanced weapons and armor gleaming in the afternoon sun. They moved with the confidence of a force that had never tasted defeat. Behind them, more landing craft descended from the orbiting fleet. The Imperial broadcast was already transmitting across human space, showing the overwhelming might arrayed against the tiny human colony. But hidden in the hills surrounding New Haven, a human predator was about to demonstrate why her species had climbed to the top of their food chain on a world where everything was trying to kill them. Elena settled into her first hide, a carefully prepared position with multiple escape routes and clear fields of fire. Through her scope, she could see alien officers directing the deployment, their alien voices carrying across the valley as they coordinated their forces. She chambered around and began calculating range, wind speed, and atmospheric conditions, with the precision of a mathematician and the patience of a hunter. The Empire was about to learn that humans had been killing things at long range for a very, very long time. Chapter 3. When Giants Fall. The first shot came at 14:37 local time. Admiral Zektar was reviewing deployment reports when Tactical Officer Zendar suddenly collapsed, his crystalline skull exploding in a shower of blue-green fluid. The round, a .338 Lapua Magnum traveling at nearly 3,000 feet per second, had covered 900 meters before finding its target through the open viewport of the command transport. Contact! War Chief Gracton's voice roared over the communication system. We have sniper fire! Zendar is down! Admiral Zektar's mandibles clicked rapidly as he processed the impossible. Impossible. Intelligence reported no long-range weapons capability. On the ridge overlooking the landing zone, Elena had already moved. The moment her bullet found its target, she rolled from her firing position, crawled 15 meters through, carefully prepared concealment, and set up in her secondary hide. Through her scope, she watched alien forces scrambling for cover, their perfect formation dissolving into chaos. Ghost to command, she whispered into her communicator. First target eliminated. They're looking for me in all the wrong places. Colonel, Chen's voice crackled back. Outstanding. Status of enemy forces. Elena swept her scope across the valley floor. The aliens were good soldiers. She had to give them credit. Instead of panicking, they were establishing defensive perimeters and beginning systematic searches for the sniper's position. But they were searching in the wrong direction, and they had no idea what they were dealing with. Multiple species, different tactical doctrines, Elena reported. The rock-skinned giants are trying to charge my last position. The crystalline ones are using sensor sweeps. The serpent heads are coordinating search patterns. Can you take another shot? Elena was already tracking her next target, a tall alien with tentacles who appeared to be directing the search efforts. General Voxhai stood behind what he thought was adequate cover, his breathing apparatus making him easy to identify through the scope. Range, 800 meters. Wind, 3 knots from the southeast. Target is stationary, overconfident. The second shot shattered General Voxhai's breathing apparatus and removed most of his head. The heavy round continued through 2 other aliens before embedding itself in the armor plating of a landing craft. This time, Elena didn't move immediately. Instead, she watched through her scope as the alien forces reacted. The rock-skinned giants were charging toward her previous position with impressive speed but terrible tactical sense. The crystalline beings were deploying some kind of scanning equipment. The serpent heads were falling back to more defensible positions. Interesting, she murmured, making mental notes about each species' combat psychology. War Chief Gracton's voice boomed across the battlefield through external speakers on his command vehicle. Human coward. Face me in honorable combat. Do not hide like a scavenger. Elena smiled. She had fought enough alien species to recognize the type. Honor-bound warriors who couldn't understand that warfare wasn't about honor. It was about killing. The enemy before they killed you. Ghost to command, she reported. The big guy wants to play. I'm going to oblige him. Negative, Ghost. Maintain Overwatch position. Trust me on this one, Command. I know how to handle bullies. Elena began moving again, this time heading deeper into the forest. She had spent 2 days preparing this battlefield, caching equipment, and establishing multiple hide sites connected by concealed paths. The aliens had superior technology, but they were fighting on her terms now. 30 minutes later, War Chief Gracton was leading 100 Cronin warriors up the ridge where the sniper fire had originated. His species were natural warriors, 8 feet tall, incredibly strong, with rocky skin that could deflect small arms fire. They moved with surprising speed for their size, confident that they could overwhelm a single human sniper. They found the first hide site empty except for a few spent shell casings. Gracton studied the position with grudging respect. The concealment was expertly crafted with clear fields of fire and multiple escape routes. The human is skilled, he admitted to his subordinates. But skill means nothing against superior strength. Spread out. Search every tree, every rock. This coward cannot hide forever. The third shot came from a completely different direction. Sub-Commander Thekvar's chest exploded as the heavy round punched through his rock-like hide and destroyed his primary organs. The Cronin warriors spun toward the new firing position, roaring their battle cries and charging toward the sound. They found nothing but forest. Admiral Zektar watched the tactical display from orbit, his confidence beginning to crack. How is one human creating such disruption? Our forces have superior numbers, superior technology, superior firepower. Commander Thissika's serpentine form coiled anxiously. Admiral, are you suggesting that humans are a warrior species? I am suggesting that humans are the warrior species, Admiral Zektar replied grimly. Every species in this chamber evolved on worlds where they were apex predators. Humans evolved on a world where everything was trying to kill them. They developed warfare as a survival mechanism, then refined it as an art form. The holographic display showed Earth's biosphere, creatures that would have given nightmares to seasoned Imperial warriors. Predators with razor teeth and crushing jaws, venomous serpents, microscopic parasites, and environmental hazards that would kill an unprotected being in minutes. Look at their homeworld, Admiral Zektar continued. Extreme weather patterns, geological instability, an atmosphere that corrodes metal, and predators that hunt in coordinated packs. Humans didn't just survive this environment. They conquered it so thoroughly that they had to invent new ways to challenge themselves. War Chief Gracton's rocky features shifted to show confusion. If humans are such formidable warriors, why do they avoid direct confrontation? Why do they hide and use stealth tactics? Because they learned that the most effective way to win a war is to avoid fighting it fairly, Admiral Zektar replied. While we developed concepts of honor and ritualized combat, humans developed the philosophy that the only rule in warfare is victory. They will use any advantage, exploit any weakness, and adapt to any situation to achieve their objectives. Supreme Commander Kexanil's voice carried a dangerous edge. You speak as if you admire these primitives. I speak as a military professional who has learned to respect his enemies, Admiral Zektar replied carefully. Supreme Commander, the Battle of New Haven was not an anomaly. It was a demonstration of standard human military capabilities. And our intelligence suggests that the warrior called Ghost was not even among their elite forces. The chamber fell silent. The implications of Admiral Zektar's assessment were staggering. If a standard human soldier could force the retreat of an Imperial fleet, what could their actual elite forces accomplish? What do you recommend? Supreme Commander Kexnil asked finally. Admiral Zektar had been dreading this question, but he had prepared his answer carefully. I recommend immediate diplomatic contact with human leadership. We should negotiate territorial boundaries and non-aggression pacts before this conflict escalates. The chamber erupted in angry voices from a dozen different species. The concept of negotiating with humans, beings they had considered primitive only months earlier, was unthinkable to many of the Imperial commanders. Silence. Supreme Commander Kexanil's voice cut through the cacophony. Admiral Zektar, you are suggesting that the Galactic Empire, which has conquered 47 star systems, should negotiate with a species that has existed in space for mere centuries. Supreme Commander, I am suggesting that we negotiate with a species that has existed in warfare for millennia. The humans have been preparing for us their entire history. They just didn't know we were coming. On New Haven, life had returned to something approaching normal. The colonists had rebuilt the damaged infrastructure, tended to their wounded, and tried to process the reality that they had faced down the most powerful military force in the galaxy and won. Dr. Marcus Vasquez stood in his office at New Haven General Hospital, reviewing patient files and trying to catch up on the medical work that had been postponed during the invasion. Through his window, he could see the memorial plaza where the colony had erected a monument to their unexpected victory. The monument was simple, a stone obelisk with the names of the Colonial Defense Force volunteers who had stood ready to fight. Impossible odds. At the base of the monument, someone had carved a single line. When giants laugh at ants, sometimes the ants have sisters. Marcus smiled at the inscription. Elena had visited the colony for 2 weeks after the battle, helping Mo to coordinate defenses and train local militia in case the Empire decided to return. She had left as quietly as she had arrived, returning to whatever mission the colonial Marines had waiting for her. But her presence had changed everything. The colonists walked a little taller, spoke a little louder, and faced each day with the confidence that came from knowing they could survive anything. Marcus's communicator buzzed, displaying an encrypted message from an unfamiliar source. He opened it carefully, his medical training making him cautious about unknown communications. The message was brief. Dr. Vasquez, this is Admiral Sarah Chen, Colonial Fleet Command. Your sister's actions at New Haven have had consequences beyond your star system. We need to speak with you about the future of human-alien relations. Please respond at your earliest convenience. Marcus frowned, wondering what his sister had gotten herself into now. But before he could compose a reply, another message appeared. This one from Elena herself. Hey, little brother. Hope you're staying out of trouble. Can't talk long, but thought. You should know the Empire wants to talk. Apparently they've decided we're not as primitive as they thought. Who knew? Take care of yourself. E. Across the galaxy, in the depths of space between star systems, Elena Vasquez sat in the pilot seat of a stealth reconnaissance vessel, monitoring Imperial fleet movements and gathering intelligence for Colonial Command. Her official mission was long-range reconnaissance, but her real job was being the ghost that reminded the Empire that humans were watching. Her ship's communication system chimed with an incoming message from Admiral Chen. Elena read the orders. Quickly, her expression shifting from mild interest to grim determination. Orders received, she transmitted back. Proceeding to rendezvous coordinates, ETA 72 hours. Elena set course for the coordinates Admiral Chen had provided, a neutral system on the border between human and Imperial space. According to her orders, she would be part of a first contact team, representing humanity in formal negotiations with the Galactic Empire. The irony wasn't lost on her. 6 months ago, she had been a sniper whose job was to kill aliens at long range. Now she was being asked to sit across a table from them and negotiate the future of human-alien relations. But as Elena guided her ship through the void between stars, she reflected on the strange turns that life could take. She had joined the colonial Marines to protect human colonies from pirates and rebels. She had never expected to become the face of humanity's emergence as a galactic power. The Empire had learned to respect humans because they had met one human who refused to be intimidated. Now both species would learn whether that respect could be the foundation for something more than fear. In the imperial capital of Zexcaran Prime, Supreme Commander Kexnil stood before a holographic display showing the current state of the Yan galaxy. Red markers indicated Imperial territory, dozens of star systems under the Empire's control. Blue markers showed human space, a much smaller cluster of systems, but ones that now carried a disproportionate weight in Imperial strategic planning. Status report, he commanded. Admiral Zektar materialized as a hologram, transmitting from his new assignment aboard a diplomatic vessel en route to the neutral zone. Supreme Commander, human representatives have agreed to formal negotiations. They will be sending a small delegation including military advisors and diplomatic staff. And the warrior called Ghost? Confirmed as part of the human delegation. Supreme Commander, I believe her presence is intended as both a gesture of good faith and a subtle reminder of human military capabilities. Supreme Commander Kexnil's massive form shifted slightly, a gesture that indicated deep thought among his species. Admiral, what is your assessment of human intentions? Based on our intelligence gathering and intercepted communications, I believe humans are genuinely interested in peaceful coexistence, but they are also prepared for war if negotiations fail. They have used the past 6 months to analyze our military doctrine, study our technology, and prepare countermeasures for our standard tactics and countermeasures. Supreme Commander, humans appear to have a saying, once is happenstance, twice is coincidence, 3 times is enemy action. They are not treating the New Haven incident as a lucky victory. They are treating it as a proof of concept for anti-imperial warfare. The holographic display shifted to show intelligence reports from across human space. New military installations, upgraded planetary defenses, and most concerningly, evidence of advanced weapons development programs. They are preparing for a war they hope to avoid, Admiral Zektar continued. And based on what we learned at New Haven, they may be preparing very effectively. Supreme Commander Kexnil studied the display for several long moments. The Galactic Empire had ruled through military superiority for over 1,000 years. The concept of negotiating with equals was foreign to their entire governmental structure, but the alternative, a prolonged war with a species that seemed to specialize in warfare, was even more troubling. Admiral, proceed with the negotiations. But be prepared for any eventuality. If these talks fail, we may be facing the first real challenge to imperial supremacy in our history. Understood, Supreme Commander. One more thing. The humans have requested that the negotiations be broadcast across both human and imperial space. They want transparency in the process. Agreed. Let both our peoples see what comes of this meeting. As the holographic connection ended, Supreme Commander Kexnil remained before the display, studying the blue markers that represented human space. Such a small territory, compared to the vast reach of the Empire. But size, as the humans had demonstrated, was not always the determining factor in warfare. The Empire was about to learn whether the species that had laughed at human tactics could also learn to live with human diplomacy. The negotiations would take place on Kepler Station, a neutral trading post in the void between human and imperial space. The station had been chosen because it belonged to neither side and had a reputation for maintaining strict neutrality in interspecies conflicts. As Elena's stealth ship approached the station, she could see the massive Imperial diplomatic vessel already docked at one of the primary ports. The ship was elegant in its alien design, all flowing curves and crystalline surfaces that caught and reflected the light of nearby stars. Docked at the opposite end of the station was the human delegation's transport, a utilitarian vessel that looked like exactly what it was, a military ship hastily converted for diplomatic purposes. Elena smiled at the contrast. Even in diplomacy, humans and the Empire approached things differently. "Ghost, this is Kepler Station Control," came a voice over the communication system. "You are cleared for docking at Port 7. Welcome to what we hope will be a historic day." "Copy, Control. Docking at Port 7. As Elena guided her ship into the docking bay, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. 6 months ago, she had been a soldier following orders, protecting her brother and his colony from alien invaders. Now she was about to sit down with those same aliens and try to negotiate a peace that would determine the future of both species. The docking bay doors sealed behind her ship, and Elena began the process of suiting up for the meeting. She had been given a dress uniform for the occasion, formal military attire that looked nothing like the camouflaged gear she usually wore in the field. But underneath the formal jacket, she still wore her sidearm. Some habits were too important to break, even for diplomacy. As Elena walked through the corridors of Kepler Station toward the conference room where history would be made, she carried with her the hopes and fears of every human colony in known space. She also carried the knowledge that she had earned the respect of the most powerful military force in the galaxy through skill, determination, and an absolute refusal to give up. The Empire had laughed at human tactics until they met a human sniper. Now, both species would learn whether they could build something better than fear. The conference room doors opened, and Elena stepped inside to meet her former enemies face to face for the first time. Across the table sat beings who had considered humans primitive and weak, beings who now knew better. Admiral Zektar rose from his seat, his crystalline form catching the light as he performed what Elena recognized as a formal greeting gesture. Among his species, "Sergeant Major Vasquez," he said, his translated voice carrying both respect and curiosity. "I have been looking forward to meeting the warrior who taught the Empire a lesson in humility." Elena smiled and extended her hand in the human gesture of greeting. "Admiral Zektar, I've been looking forward to this too. Shall we see if we can build something better than the war we both know how to fight?" As the two warriors, one human, one alien, shook hands across the conference table, The galaxy held its breath and waited to see what would come next. The age of human-alien warfare was ending. The age of human-alien cooperation was about to begin. And somewhere in the vastness of space, other civilizations watched and wondered what it meant when humans in the Galactic Empire learned to work together instead of against each other. The galaxy was about to become a much more interesting place. Admiral, perhaps we should consider orbital bombardment of the sniper's general area. Negative. We cannot appear weak by requiring orbital support against a single primitive warrior. Deploy atmospheric attack craft. Sweep the forest with thermal imaging. But Elena had anticipated air support. During her reconnaissance, she had noted several cave systems and underground streams that would mask her thermal signature. As the alien aircraft swept overhead with their sensors, she was already moving through an underground passage toward her next objective. Dr. Marcus Vasquez watched the battle from the hospital roof, his medical training warring with his concern for his sister. Through binoculars, he could see the alien forces spreading out across the valley, clearly frustrated by their inability to locate the sniper. "Doctor," Nurse Park called from below. "We're receiving casualties. Colonial Defense Force requests medical support at Grid 7. Marcus grabbed his medical bag and headed for the emergency transport. As he drove through the colony's back streets toward the defensive positions, his communicator buzzed. "Marcus, this is Elena. You there?" "Elena. Thank God. Are you all right?" "I'm fine, little brother. But I need you to do something for me. Get to the old mining tunnels beneath Sector 4. Take medical supplies for about 20 people." "Elena, what are you planning?" "Trust me." "And Marcus? Stay away from the main hospital for the next 2 hours." The communication went dead, leaving Marcus with a cold feeling in his stomach. He had grown up with Elena, and he recognized that tone. She was about to do something that would change everything. High above the planet, Admiral Zektar was losing patience. "War Chief Gracton, report your status." "We have lost 6 warriors to the human sniper." Gracton's voice carried barely controlled rage. "The coward strikes and disappears like smoke. This is not warfare, this is assassination." "Then find the assassin and eliminate them." "We are trying, Admiral, but this human fights like no enemy we have faced. They know this terrain perfectly. They have prepared positions we cannot detect, and their weapon is more effective than our intelligence suggested." Admiral Zektar's exoskeleton shifted to angry red patterns. In 47 conquered systems, they had never encountered resistance like this. One human with a primitive projectile weapon was making the Empire look foolish in front of the entire galaxy. "Double the ground forces," he ordered. "Deploy everything we have. I want that human found and eliminated within the hour." As more alien landing craft descended toward New Haven, Elena was already preparing her next surprise. She had led the aliens exactly where she wanted them, away from the colony and into the hills where her advantages were strongest. But now it was time to get personal. She opened her equipment cache and pulled out something that would have made Admiral Zektar very nervous indeed. A case containing disassembled components for a weapon that officially didn't exist in human military arsenals. Elena began assembling her ace in the hole, a prototype electromagnetic rail rifle that fired depleted uranium rounds at velocities, that made her 338 Lapua look like a slingshot. The Empire wanted a demonstration of power. They were about to get one. Chapter 4. The Reckoning at 1645. Local time, the Eternal Dominion shuddered. Admiral Zektar felt the massive dreadnought shift beneath his feet, something that should have been impossible. The ship was 12 kilometers long, armored with composite materials that could withstand direct hits from plasma cannons, and protected by energy shields that had never been penetrated by any known weapon. "Report," he commanded, his voice carrying both authority and confusion. Navigation Officer Velthar's tentacles trembled as he read his instruments. "Admiral, we have suffered a hull breach on Deck 17. Emergency bulkheads are sealing the damage, but..." He paused, his alien features showing disbelief. "Sir, the projectile passed completely through the ship." "Impossible." What could penetrate our armor from the surface? Admiral, Communications Officer Zixara interrupted. We're receiving a transmission from the human sniper. Audio only, directed specifically at your command frequency. Admiral Zektar's mandibles clicked rapidly. The human had somehow accessed their encrypted military communications, another impossibility to add to the growing list. Put it through. Elena's voice came through the bridge speakers with crystal clarity, carrying an accent that marked her as coming from one of Earth's outer colonies. Admiral Zektar. My name is Sergeant Major Elena Vasquez, 3rd Recon Battalion, Colonial Marines, callsign Ghost. Human, you will surrender immediately or we will glass your entire colony from orbit. Elena's laugh was cold and professional. Admiral, I just put a depleted uranium round through your flagship at a range of 12,000 meters. That was me being polite. Would you like to see what happens when I stop being polite? On the surface, Elena was positioned on a mountain peak that the aliens hadn't even considered as a potential sniper hide. The electromagnetic rail rifle was a masterpiece of human engineering, a weapon designed for anti-armor operations that could accelerate a projectile to significant fractions of light speed. Through her scope, she could see the massive alien, dreadnought hanging in low orbit, its hull glowing where her round had punched clean through both sides of the vessel. You see, Admiral, Elena continued, you made a fundamental error in your intelligence assessment. You assumed that because we use primitive projectile weapons, we don't understand advanced physics. But the thing about humans is that we've been killing each other with thrown objects for about 2 million years. We've gotten very, very good at it. War Chief Gracton's voice boomed over the communication channel. Human warrior, you have shown skill and courage. I offer you single combat winner take all. Thanks for the offer, big guy, but I'm not done with your boss yet. Elena adjusted her aim slightly, targeting the Eternal Dominion's primary weapons array. The rail rifle hummed as it charged, drawing power from a portable fusion cell that represented the absolute cutting edge of human technology. Admiral, she said conversationally, your species have been spacefaring for what, 10,000 years? Impressive. Humans have been in space for maybe 300 years. But we learned something important during our expansion. It doesn't matter how advanced your technology is if you don't understand your enemy. The second shot destroyed the dreadnought's main plasma cannon in a spectacular explosion that lit up the upper atmosphere. You see, you think of us as primitive because we still use projectile weapons, but you never asked yourselves, why would a species advanced enough for interstellar travel still use kinetic weapons? The answer is simple: because they work. Admiral, Zektar's exoskeleton had shifted to colors indicating extreme distress. Around him, the bridge crew worked frantically to assess damage and maintain ship systems. Human, you cannot possibly defeat our entire fleet with a single weapon. You're absolutely right, Admiral. I can't defeat your entire fleet, but I don't need to defeat your entire fleet. Elena's scope swept across the Imperial formation, identifying her targets with the patience of a professional predator. She had studied the Empire's military doctrine during her transit to New Haven, and she understood their weakness: centralized command structure. See, the thing about empires is that they're top-heavy. Remove the head, and the body dies. And Admiral, you've been very helpful in identifying all the heads for me. The third shot severed the primary communication array connecting Admiral Zektar's flagship to the rest of the fleet. On the surface, Colonial Defense Force positions reported in amazement as the massive alien fleet above them suddenly stopped, coordinating their movements. Ships began drifting apart, their formation dissolving as individual commanders tried to establish communication with their superiors. Ghost to command, Elena reported. Enemy fleet is experiencing command breakdown. Recommend immediate attack on ground forces while they're disorganized. Colonel Chen's voice crackled with excitement. Understood, Ghost. All units, advance to secondary positions. Hit them while they're confused. Dr. Marcus Vasquez emerged from the mining tunnels where he had been treating wounded Colonial Defense Force volunteers. Through the underground passages, he had heard the sounds of battle shift dramatically. The alien forces that had been methodically searching the hills were now retreating in disorder, their commanders apparently unable to coordinate their actions. Above them all, Admiral Zektar stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship, finally beginning to understand what he was facing. The human wasn't just a skilled sniper. She was a strategic thinker who understood that warfare was about more than just killing the enemy. It was about breaking their will to fight. "Open all channels," he ordered. "Sir, our communication array is damaged. Use emergency frequencies. I don't care if the entire galaxy hears this." Elena's voice came through the static-filled channel. "I'm listening, Admiral." "What do you want?" "I want you to leave. Take your ships, take your soldiers, and get out of human space. Don't come back." Admiral Zektar's mandibles clicked in what might have been bitter laughter. "You cannot possibly believe that one human warrior can dictate terms to the Galactic Empire. Admiral, let me tell you something about human history. We've been fighting wars on our world for thousands of years. We've learned that it's not about the size of your army or the power of your weapons. It's about who's willing to go the furthest to protect what they love." Elena chambered another round, the electromagnetic coils of the rail rifle beginning to glow with contained energy. "I have 12 more rounds for this rifle, Admiral. Each one can punch through your heaviest armor. I can take out your engines, your weapons, your life support. I can turn your mighty fleet into a collection of drifting hulks. Or..." She paused, letting the implications hang in the alien-filtered air. Or you can withdraw your forces and explain to your superiors that humans are not the primitive species you thought we were, that we're not afraid of your empire, and we're not going to roll over just because you show up with big ships. On the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, Admiral Zektar faced a decision that would define the rest of his military career. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders, their various alien features showing confusion and something approaching fear. For the first time since the formation of the Galactic Empire, a single individual from a primitive species was dictating terms to their most powerful fleet. And the most terrifying part was that the human might actually be able to back up her threats. "All ships," Admiral Zektar said quietly, "begin withdrawal to orbit. Ground forces return to landing craft immediately." The order was transmitted across the remaining communication channels, and across the surface of New Haven, alien forces began their retreat. War Chief Grakton's voice came through the static, filled with confusion and wounded pride. "Admiral, we cannot retreat from a single human." "War Chief," Admiral Zektar replied, his voice carrying the weight of hard-learned wisdom. "We are not retreating from a single human. We are retreating from a species that produces humans like this one. And if this is what one of their soldiers can accomplish, I do not wish to learn what their armies can do." As the Imperial fleet pulled back to safe orbital distance, Elena remained in position, her weapon trained on the retreating ships. Through her scope, she watched the massive dreadnoughts rise through the atmosphere, their hulls still glowing from the damage she had inflicted. "Ghost to command," she reported. "Enemy forces are withdrawing. New Haven is secure." Colonel Chen's voice carried disbelief and admiration in equal measure. "Outstanding work, Ghost. How copy on casualty reports?" Elena swept her scope across the battlefield below. The alien retreat was orderly but swift, with no signs that they intended to return. On the human side, she could see Colonial Defense Force personnel emerging from their positions, many of them looking stunned that they were still alive. "Minimal friendly casualties reported," she said. "Looks like the good guys win this round." As she began disassembling the rail rifle, Elena's communicator buzzed with an incoming message from her brother. "Elena? Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Marcus, just finishing up some work. How's the medical situation?" "A few wounded, mostly minor injuries." "Elena, what you did up there, the whole colony is talking about it. They're calling you a hero." Elena smiled as she packed her equipment. "I'm not a hero, little brother. I'm just a soldier who got very, very tired of being laughed at." High above New Haven, Admiral Zektar stood in his damaged command center, watching the planet recede, as his fleet withdrew to the edge of the system. Around him, his staff worked to compile reports that would have to be submitted to Imperial Command, reports that would be very difficult to explain. A single human sniper had forced the withdrawal of the Empire's most powerful fleet. The recordings of the battle were already spreading across the galactic communication networks, and the implications were staggering. "Admiral," Commander Thissika asked quietly, "what do we tell Imperial Command?" Admiral Zektar studied the blue-green world that was already becoming just another point of light in the starfield. Somewhere on that planet's surface, a human warrior was probably cleaning her weapon and preparing to return to whatever peaceful life she had lived before his fleet arrived. "We tell them the truth," he said finally. "We tell them that we have severely underestimated humanity, and we recommend that any future encounters with human forces be conducted with significantly more respect." As the Imperial fleet jumped to hyperspace, leaving New Haven's system empty except for the colonists who had chosen to make their stand, Elena Vasquez finally began her journey back to the colony. She had a brother to visit and a very long report to write. But first, she was going to enjoy a cup of coffee and watch the sunset over a world that would remain free.